Hi and welcome to Sussing Life with me, Hamish Somerville. 3 ways to know yourself as immaterialism, as consciousness, and as non-duality or selflessness. Today's topic is know yourself as non-duality or selflessness. And just to recap, we looked at immaterialism. Essentially, we were looking at materialism as the current world culture and coming to the conclusion that it's a flawed way of looking at life. Materialism, the flaw in it is that we are not material beings. We are consciousness. Our consciousness does not arise from matter in our brains. It's the other way around. Our brains, everything in this world, arises from consciousness. Materialism, we're not our bodies, we're not our thoughts, we're not our experiences, we are consciousness. Despite the fact that the materialist view is taught in schools and universities worldwide today. Know yourself as consciousness because that is what we are. That's what you are, that's what I am, that's what we are. As it puts it in the Buddhist Heart Sutra, it's beyond words, it's beyond thoughts, it's beyond description. We are the subject, we're not the object. We can't describe ourselves objectively. We can get closer to understanding what we are by using analogies. And one of the best analogies for me is the analogy that mind's nature, what we actually are, is like clear blue sky. And how we appear, how we manifest in this materialist world is like the clouds that come and go in the sky, whether they're wispy summer clouds that come and go quickly and no problems, or whether they're dark, threatening, angry thunder clouds that can cause us huge problems. Selflessness, what we are, non-duality. Let's get into that one now. And the question is, are we separate beings? Are we separate selves? Or could it be that we are all manifestations of one universal shared being? My first insights into selflessness came in my 20s. I got addicted to smoking cigarettes. I knew it was a dirty, filthy, horrible, disgusting, stinking habit, but I was addicted and it was very difficult to stop. People said to me, use your will. Well, I hadn't actually started to meditate then, but I guess that was what started me meditating. I looked into myself to see if I could find a separate self, a separate will that would make a decision to stop smoking. And I looked and I couldn't find. And to begin with, I thought there must be something wrong with me. I couldn't find a separate self, a separate will. I've been looking for 60 years now, and I've had the benefit of some really great teachings from Buddhist teachers and Advaita teachers and other teachers, and from reading and studying. And I'm convinced there is no separate will or self, no separate being. It's just not there. My body and all the things that I experience in this world are part of shared eternal consciousness, and they arise from this immaterial consciousness. Immaterial being, consciousness. And now let's look at the question, are we part of one universal shared consciousness? Could it be that we are all part of selfless non-duality? Could it be that your being is my being is your being, and we are all manifestations of one non-dual, infinite, eternal consciousness? 3 ways to know yourself: immaterialism, consciousness, and non-duality. I am. What I've seen, and I hope I've shown in previous videos, is we are consciousness. We are the subjects. We are not the objects. Looking at know yourself as non-duality, that is what we are. We are all part of one universal shared being. And the benefit of that, the great benefit of seeing life from the point of view of universal shared consciousness, is that there is, of course, a will in the universe, what some people call grace, some people call karma, some people call shunyata, some people call God. For me, the best word for it is nature. Nature, what we all make up together. And it greatly encourages me to see that great scientists as well as great thinkers have come to the same conclusion. Einstein put it very clearly. A human being is part of a whole called by us the universe, a part limited in time and space. When Einstein was asked about God, Einstein said, I believe in Spinoza's God. And I'm not an expert in philosophy, but I believe too in Spinoza's God. Spinoza, described by Bertrand Russell as the noblest and most lovable of the great philosophers. Spinoza said, God is nature, Deus sive natura. God is the infinite, eternal substance that constitutes the entire universe. And from contemplating and meditating and looking at my experience and what I can see, I'm convinced Spinoza was right. God is the infinite, eternal substance that constitutes the entire universe. Non-duality, selfless non-duality. And very, very important that we see this, because most of us in this world, we tend to think that we are Christians, Muslims, Hindus, Buddhists, communists, humanists, whatever it is. But my observation and my experience is that I tend to look at life from the point of view of materialism, and I think a great majority of other human beings look at life from the same materialist point of view, which is, in my view, fundamentally flawed. I was brought up in the Protestant church, and I'm very, very grateful for the values that I got from the Protestant church. But when it came to actually explaining who am I, what's life all about, I never really got explanations that I found satisfactory. God always seemed to be explained somehow as some kind of male human being, some kind of super man with a beard living up in the clouds. And not only talking to other Protestants, talking to Catholics, talking to people with other completely different views, they have this idea that they were given as children, that God is somehow some kind of male bearded being that lives in the clouds. And I've lived half my life now in Switzerland, and on the Protestant wall in Geneva, the founding fathers of the Protestant church all are amazingly depicted as statues, which look more or less exactly like this old man that lives somewhere with a beard up in the cloud. When I managed to stop smoking, I like to tell myself I'd done it with free will. Life is better when I believe in free will. And I really like the comment from William James, sometimes called the father of American psychology, who wrote in his diaries on the subject of free will, "My first act of free will shall be to believe in free will." And for me, I don't believe, and I can't find any separate free will, but I am convinced that as a default view of life, we can align our being with universal being. And when you do that, our will is free to decide according to the will of the universe. Universal free will. No separate ego self, no separate personality, habitual mind, no separate being, no reactive personality. Universal free will, wisdom. And the benefits of seeing life from that point of view, as far as I can see, are enormous. As the Buddha pointed out 2,500 years ago. Suffering, most of our suffering arises from believing that we are separate beings. As the great Buddhist master Atisha, who lived round the turn of the first millennium and spent the last years of his life in Tibet, he taught his top Tibetan students the Eightfold Supreme Path of Mind training, answering 8 questions. And the first big question was, what is the supreme knowledge? Atisha's answer was, the supreme knowledge is to realize the meaning of selflessness. The meaning of selflessness. And I'm convinced that Atisha was dead right on that one. If we know and understand selflessness, I believe we've made a big step towards knowing ourselves and to understanding what life is about. Selflessness. Also, my observation in this lifetime has been that most of the people who I've most admired for their contribution to the world have been described as selfless. People who put the welfare of others before their own welfare. And another huge benefit of looking at life from the point of view of selflessness is we don't need to fear death, because it's manifestly obvious that what we are, consciousness, is not going to die. Harmony, selflessness, an opportunity to live in harmony with nature and other beings, human and animal and whatever. An opportunity to live in harmony with our environment, to reduce our destruction of nature and of our environment. And also an opportunity to realize, as has been my experience all my life, the things that we do for the benefit of others in the long run bring us more joy and happiness than the things we do purely for ourselves. I like the story of Amazing Grace of John Newton, who wrote the Amazing Grace, who went to sea as a young man and at one point was captured and was a slave for several years in Africa. Eventually he was freed, went back to sea, became captain of a slaving ship, and he was miraculously saved in a dreadful storm, survived, and decided to devote the rest of his life to being a partisan and fighting for the abolition of slavery. He wrote these wonderful words, "Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me." That sounds to me like a good example of the universal will at work. So to summarize, my recipe for unhappiness is to make my default view materialism, to believe that my consciousness arises from matter in my brain. My recipe for happiness, on the other hand, is to look at life the other way round. My default view is immaterialism. I am consciousness, and it's consciousness that gives rise to the material world and all the things that I experience in that world. And looking at life from that point of view, my observation is I'm happier, I'm more content with what I have. As John Bunyan put it in Pilgrim's Progress, I am content with what I have, little be it or much. 3 ways to know yourself: immaterialism, consciousness, non-duality. And my aim with these videos is to check my understanding, hopefully to get some comments, so we can get into a really good going discussion. I do hope you'll contact me so we can do that, and hopefully we'll get to know ourselves better. Thanks for listening. Thanks for liking and subscribing. Don't forget the book, and hope to see you soon for the follow-up videos.